Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why certain things in your life happen the way they do? Why some people seem to move effortlessly through life, while you struggle despite trying everything you can? Why things fall apart just when they seem to be coming together? There's something beneath all of it, something that isn't seen with the eye or heard with the ear, but felt in the deepest parts of the soul. There's a rhythm, a pattern, an order so silent and subtle that most people miss it. It's not fate or coincidence, but something far more intelligent and purposeful. These are the hidden rules that run your life. They're not taught in school, not printed in any manual, not enforced by any government, but they're more powerful than gravity and more consistent than the sunrise. These rules live in the invisible space between your choices and your outcomes, between your faith and your future. And the foundation of these hidden rules is faith in God. Not religion, not ritual, but raw, real, honest faith. The kind that exists before you even speak it. The kind that can hold you when nothing else can. The kind that doesn't need the approval of logic or the permission of proof. This faith is the code that unlocks everything. It doesn't mean everything will go your way. It means you'll start to see purpose in the parts of life that once felt pointless. You'll begin to understand that nothing you've been through has been wasted, that your life has never been random, and that the most powerful shifts in your journey begin not when you plan harder, but when you trust deeper. It's this invisible trust that changes the visible story of your life. The moment you believe there's something greater than your own strength guiding you, you stop fearing the things you can't control. Because you know they're not out of control, they're under divine control. We live in a world obsessed with evidence. We are taught to believe what we can prove, to trust only what we can touch. But the most important parts of life, the ones that shape you, move you, define you, can't be measured. Love, hope, pain, dreams, these live in the unseen, and so does faith. Faith is the unseen bridge between your current situation and your future transformation. It's what holds you up when everything else lets you down. It's what keeps you walking when logic tells you to stop. When you have faith in God, you walk by a light that no one else sees. People may call you naive. They may tell you to be more realistic. They may laugh at your hope, mock your prayers, or doubt your direction. But faith isn't about them. It's not even about you. It's about trusting the one who sees what you cannot, who hears what you do not, who knows what you can't begin to imagine. Faith rewires your mind to recognize divine fingerprints in the details. What looks like a delay is a setup. What feels like rejection is protection. What appears like an end is often the very beginning, and none of it is random. It's all ruled by a higher order, a divine architecture that turns every broken piece into part of the masterpiece. You might not always feel this order. In fact, there will be times when life feels like a mess, when prayers seem unanswered, when doors slam shut, when people walk away, when confusion clouds your thoughts. It's in those moments, especially those moments, that the hidden rules are working the hardest. Faith doesn't mean understanding everything. It means choosing to believe even when you understand nothing. It's easy to trust God when the path is clear and the blessings are flowing. But real faith shows up when the road disappears and the storm starts to rage. It's in the silent struggles, the private tears, and the sleepless nights that the deepest faith is born. Because it's in that darkness where your soul begins to hear what your mind can't explain. A still voice, a quiet whisper, a presence that doesn't promise ease, but promises purpose. The world might call it imagination, but you'll know it's something far more real than anything you've touched. You'll know because you'll feel a peace that makes no sense. A strength that wasn't yours, a comfort that feels like home. That's faith. That's the first and most powerful hidden rule. And it changes everything, not because the world changes, but because you do. You start to carry yourself differently. You stop reacting to life and start responding with wisdom. You become less shaken by the chaos around you, because you're grounded in something unshakable within you. Faith gives you spiritual clarity in a world of mental confusion. It sharpens your vision beyond what the eyes can see. You look at failure and see lessons. You look at pain and see preparation. You look at closed doors and see redirection. You see life not as a series of accidents, but as a divine journey with each step designed for your growth. this shift doesn't happen overnight. It happens as you start leaning into the invisible instead of chasing the visible. As you choose prayer over panic, as you choose purpose over pressure, as you choose trust over torment, and slowly, life begins to respond to this internal change. Opportunities begin to find you. People begin to notice your peace. Battles begin to settle before they even begin. Because when your internal world is governed by faith, your external world begins to reflect that alignment. You no longer live like a leaf tossed in the wind. You live like a tree planted by rivers of wisdom, steady, grounded, unmoved. This faith-driven life doesn't mean you won't face storms. It means you'll survive them differently. You'll stop asking why me and start asking what now. You'll stop seeing problems as punishments and start seeing them as platforms. Because faith in God isn't about escaping life's problems, it's about transforming them. Turning trials into training, turning setbacks into setups, turning confusion into calling. You begin to realize that God isn't just present in the victories, He's right there in the valleys. That the pain didn't come to break you, it came to build you. That the detours weren't delays, they were divine directions. And even when things don't make sense, you'll feel anchored. Because faith isn't built on what you feel, it's built on what you know. And what you know is this: God is for you. He sees you. He's working, even in the silence, especially in the silence. Faith isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily one. It's waking up each morning and choosing to believe again. Choosing to trust even when there's no sign. Choosing to keep going when the road is steep. Faith grows through repetition, through practice, through the constant, quiet decisions that no one sees but heaven celebrates. It's the yes you whisper in the middle of doubt. It's the prayer you offer when your heart is breaking. It's the smile you give when your soul is tired. Each moment of faith is a thread, and over time, those threads create a garment of spiritual strength that wraps around your life and protects you in ways the world can't explain. You're not just surviving, you're being transformed. And this transformation doesn't always look impressive from the outside, but inside, something powerful is happening. You're becoming unshakable. You're developing discernment. You're walking in divine rhythm. And this rhythm guides you better than any map ever could. Sometimes the hidden rules work through what is taken from you. People you thought you needed leave. Plans you counted on fall apart. Things you loved are stripped away. And in the moment, it feels cruel. But with faith, you begin to see that subtraction is often the first step to elevation. That God removes what you cling to so you can cling to Him. That He allows breakdowns so you can have breakthroughs. That He empties your hands so He can fill them with something better. It's never punishment, it's preparation. And faith is what allows you to see that. Without faith, you'll resist the process. You'll become bitter, angry, lost. But with faith, you'll rise. You'll grow. You'll shine. And the light that shines from someone who's walked through fire and kept their faith, that light changes the world. Faith also redefines your identity. The world tries to label you, tries to define you by your mistakes, your past, your failures. But God calls you something else. He calls you redeemed, loved, chosen. And when you have faith in His word over the world's opinion, you stop living under the weight of shame. You stop replaying the regrets. You stop trying to earn what He already gave freely. You step into your divine identity not with pride, but with purpose. You realize you were made for more. Not more money or more fame, but more meaning, more impact, more presence, more peace. And faith is the doorway to that version of you. It's the path to the real you, the one God designed before the world tried to distract you. So much of life changes when you walk by faith. You become less concerned with how things look and more focused on how they align. You stop chasing what glitters and start choosing what's godly. You begin to filter every opportunity, every decision, every relationship through the lens of faith. And that lens reveals things others miss. You'll see red flags before they become disasters. You'll feel nudges that protect you from mistakes. You'll hear guidance that doesn't come from books or voices but from within. This is the divine intelligence that flows through a faithful soul. This is the advantage of walking in alignment with the hidden rules. The world sees chaos, but you see choreography. The world feels random, but you feel rooted. And that's because faith isn't passive, it's powerful. It doesn't sit back and hope, it stands up and moves with courage, with clarity, with conviction. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are not broken. You are simply being guided by rules the world can't see. And once you start recognizing that, you begin to live a life that others will call blessed, but you'll know it was built on faith all along. People go their entire lives trying to control things that were never meant to be controlled. They grip tightly to outcomes, plans, and people, believing that if they just try hard enough, they can force life into submission. But what if the true power isn't found in gripping tighter, but in letting go? What if the real strength is found not in controlling, but in surrendering? Surrender is one of the most misunderstood principles in life, yet it's one of the most powerful hidden rules that run everything. The world teaches you to strive, to push, to dominate, but faith teaches you to release, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know that your hands are too small to carry what only God can hold. Surrender isn't the absence of effort, it's the presence of trust. It's saying, I've done all I can, and now I leave the rest in the hands of the one who knows better than I do. It's not giving up, it's giving into a higher wisdom. The moment you learn this rule, everything begins to change. You stop exhausting yourself with anxiety and start experiencing peace. You stop chasing things and start attracting them. You stop trying to control the storm and start walking on water, because you're no longer trying to command the wind, you're aligned with the one who does. Think about all the things you've tried to force into existence. Relationships you clung to out of fear of being alone. Jobs you chased out of insecurity, not calling. Dreams you forced before their time. And then remember how it felt when you finally let go. That moment when you said, I can't do this anymore, and something shifted. Not because you quit, but because you finally surrendered. That's when real movement began. Because there is a divine order that starts working the moment your will moves aside. God doesn't force his way in. He waits for your surrender, and once you offer it, once you lay down your need to control everything, he begins to do what you never could. He orchestrates connections. He moves hearts. He aligns timing. He clears paths. He replaces confusion with clarity. That's the hidden power of surrender. It's not the end of your strength, it's the beginning of his. But surrender doesn't come easy. It requires a death to pride. It demands the humility to admit that you don't have all the answers. It asks you to release your grip on the very things you thought defined you. That's scary, because we are taught to equate control with security. But in reality, control is an illusion. The more you try to hold on, the more things slip through your fingers. But when you let go, when you truly say, God, I trust you, even when you don't understand, even when it hurts, even when it scares you, that's when miracles start to happen. That's when you stop living from fear and start living from freedom. The freedom to fail and know it's not fatal. The freedom to wait and know it's not wasted. The freedom to lose and still be loved. Surrender frees you from the pressure of pretending to have it all together. You don't need to. You just need to have the courage to let go and let God take over. There's a strange paradox in life. The more you surrender, the more control you actually gain. Not over others, but over yourself, over your reactions, your peace, your direction. Because surrender isn't passive, it's powerful. It's intentional. It says, I'm choosing to put this in God's hands because his hands are stronger than mine. This choice rewires your perspective. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, you begin to see them as redirections. Instead of viewing delays as denials, you see them as divine pauses. You begin to trust that what is meant for you will find its way to you, without you having to force it. That if something doesn't work out, it's because something better is being prepared. This isn't wishful thinking, it's spiritual alignment. It's understanding that God sees the whole picture while you only see a pixel, and trusting him with that bigger picture changes how you walk through life. But surrender is not a what-I'm event, it's a daily posture. Every morning, you wake up and decide again, will I carry this on my own, or will I place it in God's hands? Will I panic, or will I pray? Will I manipulate, or will I trust? It's in these small decisions that the hidden rule of surrender comes alive. It's in the quiet moment when you release your worry instead of rehearsing it. It's in the moment you say no to anxiety and yes to peace. It's in the shift from striving to stillness. Each of these decisions adds up. Over time, they form a new way of living, one rooted not in fear of losing control, but in faith that control was never yours to begin with. And as your heart begins to rest in that truth, your life begins to reflect it. Doors that were closed begin to open. Peace that eluded you begins to settle in. Opportunities start to arrive, not because you chased them, but because you were ready to receive them. This is the fruit of surrender. Sometimes, surrender means letting go of the outcome you were desperately attached to. It means accepting that your version of the plan might not be the best one. It means choosing peace over perfection. It's releasing the need to be in the driver's seat and trusting that God knows where He's taking you. That's hard when you're in pain. It's hard when you've waited for years. It's hard when your heart is breaking and all you want is for things to go your way. But faith reminds you that God's way is always better, even when it's harder. Surrender says, I trust you, even when I don't understand you. And that kind of trust moves heaven. It changes the atmosphere around you. It calms storms inside you. It sets you free from the heavy burden of self-reliance, because carrying everything yourself was never the design. You were created to walk with God, not apart from Him. The beauty of surrender is that it doesn't strip you of power, it reconnects you to true power. The kind that doesn't fluctuate with circumstances. The kind that doesn't depend on who's for you or against you. The kind that isn't built on your performance, but on God's presence. This power is quiet, but unbreakable. It allows you to smile in uncertainty, to rest in chaos, to walk through fire and come out refined, not ruined. Surrender anchors you in something eternal, so you're not tossed by temporary storms. And people will notice. They'll ask how you have peace when everything around you is shaking. They'll wonder how you still stand tall when everything seems to be falling. And you'll know it's not you, it's Him. It's the one you surrendered to. The one who took your ashes and gave you beauty. The one who took your worry and gave you wisdom. The one who took your fight and gave you freedom. There's a grace that flows when you surrender. It carries you through situations that would have broken you. It opens your eyes to things you never saw before. It allows you to receive what you would have missed had you been too busy forcing your way through life. Surrender turns your heart into fertile ground, ready to receive, ready to grow, ready to be led instead of dragged. And in that posture, you become someone the world cannot shake. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger by leaning on the one who never weakens. Surrender builds unshakable faith, the kind that keeps going when logic says stop, the kind that believes when nothing makes sense, the kind that trusts not in what is seen, but in what is eternal. And as that faith grows, it begins to overflow into your relationships, into your work, into your decisions. It begins to shape your entire life. Even your language changes. You stop saying, "What if I fail?" and start saying, "Even if I fail, I trust God's plan." You stop saying, "I have to make this happen," and start saying, "If it's meant for me, it will come to me." You stop begging for things to work and start believing that what doesn't work was never part of the plan. This mindset shift is liberation. It breaks chains you didn't even know you were carrying. It frees you from the silent slavery of performance, the exhausting need to always be in control, to always know, to always succeed. Surrender whispers that it's okay not to know, that it's okay to rest, that you don't have to be your own savior, because you already have one. And He's waiting for you to let go, so He can take over. You might wonder, what if I surrender and things still don't go the way I hoped? And the answer is, they won't always. But what you'll gain is far more valuable than any outcome. You'll gain alignment. Alignment with God's will. Alignment with divine timing. Alignment with your purpose. And that alignment will carry you further than any forced plan ever could. It will protect you from things you thought you wanted, but would have destroyed you. It will guide you to places you never dreamed of, because you were too busy trying to stay safe. Surrender takes you beyond safety. It takes you into significance. It's not the easy path, but it's the true one. And the truth always leads to freedom. You'll start noticing how the things you used to chase now come to you. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting. Your energy shifts. Your posture shifts. Your entire vibration begins to operate on a higher frequency. You walk with a quiet confidence, a divine assurance, a deep knowing that whatever comes, you are held. Whatever breaks, you will heal. Whatever ends, something better will begin. Because surrender isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your transformation. It's the space where faith becomes your fuel, where trust becomes your traction, where peace becomes your power. And as you live from this place, you start to understand why surrender is one of the most powerful hidden rules of all. Because it doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your soul. There's something deeply sacred about the quiet moments when no one is watching, when the world is asleep, the room is silent, and your heart finally has a chance to speak without interruption. In those moments, something rises from within, not a demand, not a complaint, but a whisper, thank you. Not because everything is perfect, not because life is easy, but because, even in the middle of the unknown, something in you knows that you are held. That kind of gratitude is not ordinary. It's not performative. It's not about posting your blessings for likes or listing your wins to feel accomplished. It's spiritual. It's a form of worship. It is one of the most powerful hidden rules that runs your life, often unnoticed by those who are too busy, waiting for more before they express thanks for what already is. Gratitude is not a result of having everything. It's the reason more begins to flow into your life. It's a spiritual magnet, a divine amplifier, a hidden signal that tells the universe, tells heaven, tells God you're ready for more, because you appreciate what you've already been given. It's easy to be thankful when the doors are opening, when the healing arrives, when the prayers are answered exactly as you hoped. But the real test, the one that activates this hidden rule, is being grateful in the middle of uncertainty, when the bank account is low, when the diagnosis hasn't changed, when the relationship is strained, when the opportunity passed. Gratitude, in the waiting room of life, is what unlocks favor no one can explain. It's when you lift your hands in thanks even as your heart aches. It's when you say, I still believe even though the evidence is missing. This kind of gratitude is not dependent on the external. It's born in the internal, in the deep, quiet trust that God is good even when life is not, that He's working even when it feels like nothing is moving. Gratitude makes you strong in ways muscles can't. It gives you eyes to see blessings hiding behind burdens. It keeps your spirit alive when circumstances feel dead. It's not naive, it's powerful. Because what you appreciate multiplies. What you recognize grows. What you honor is honored. Many people miss their miracles because they're too focused on what they lack to notice what they have. They're praying for more while dishonoring the little they already possess. But the hidden rule says, what you don't respect, you lose. What you don't thank God for, you're not ready to keep. It's not about pretending things are better than they are. It's about choosing to focus on what's still right when everything else feels wrong. You may not have the job you want, but you woke up today. You may not have the house you dream of, but you have shelter. You may not be surrounded by a crowd of friends, but you have breath in your lungs and purpose in your soul. And if you can, learn to thank God for the small. He will trust you with the big, not because He needs your gratitude, but because gratitude prepares your heart for elevation. It humbles you, it softens you, it aligns you. It says, I trust you with what I have, and I trust you with what I don't. There's something divine about a heart that can say thank you when everything says you shouldn't. That kind of gratitude is a weapon. It silences the voice of fear. It shuts down the whispers of lack. It kills comparison, because you can't be truly grateful and envious at the same time. You can't be grateful and bitter in the same breath. Real gratitude cleanses the soul. It realigns your vision. You stop looking at what others have and start appreciating the unique journey God has. You begin to notice the small moments, the laughter of a child, the colors of the sky, the warmth of a morning sun. Things that used to feel ordinary now feel sacred. Gratitude makes everything glow. It turns survival into celebration. It turns routine into reverence, and over time, it builds a foundation in your life that no storm can shake. Because even if everything falls apart, you still have the anchor of thankfulness holding you steady. Gratitude is not an emotion, it's a decision, a daily one, a moment-by-moment one. It's choosing to believe that even the mess has meaning, that even the setbacks are sacred, that even the loss is laced with lessons. When you practice gratitude like this, it changes the atmosphere around you. It makes you magnetic. People feel something different in you. They can't quite explain it, but it draws them in. Because a grateful heart is a healing heart. It gives off peace. It gives off strength. It reminds people that joy is not the absence of pain, but the presence of perspective. You carry yourself with calm confidence, not because life is easy, but because you've trained your soul to see goodness in every season. That kind of presence is rare in this world, and it's powerful. You might think gratitude doesn't change the situation, but it always changes you. And when you change, everything around you begins to respond differently. You begin to speak differently. No longer do your words echo complaints or feed worry. Your language shifts. Your tone softens. Your conversations uplift. That change in your voice reflects a change in your vision. You no longer speak from lack, you speak from abundance. Even if the abundance is not yet in your hands, because you see it in your heart. Because gratitude has taught you to believe in the unseen, to trust the process, to see the hand of God, even when His face is hidden. That kind of faith, fueled by gratitude, makes you unstoppable. It makes you resilient. It makes you glow with grace in a world that's tired and cynical. Gratitude also makes you generous, because when you know how it feels to thank God for what little you have, you naturally want to share it. You realize you don't need to have everything to give something. You see the value in kindness, in encouragement, in time. You become a giver, not because you're overflowing with resources, but because you're overflowing with thanks. Gratitude creates generosity, and generosity always multiplies. It comes back around, sometimes in ways you never expect. A kind word, a new opportunity, a door you didn't even knock on. That's the hidden flow of a grateful life. It opens things, it softens people. It paves the way for blessings you didn't earn, but were simply prepared to receive. But let's be honest, there are moments when gratitude feels impossible. When the pain is too loud, when the loss is too fresh, when the delay is too long. In those moments, gratitude isn't about feeling, it's about focus. It's about looking harder, digging deeper, asking, what can I still thank you for today? Sometimes it's just breath. Sometimes it's just one person who stayed. Sometimes it's the fact that, even though you don't know what's next, you're still here, still standing, still hoping. That's enough. And the more you focus on that, the stronger you become. Gratitude doesn't eliminate grief, but it carries you through it. It doesn't fix the hurt, but it reminds you that healing is possible. It doesn't ignore the darkness, it places a candle inside it. And that light, though small, is powerful enough to keep your spirit alive. That your relationship with God deepens through gratitude. When you thank Him not just for what He gives but for who He is, something shifts. You stop seeing Him as a vending machine and start seeing Him as a father, a guide, a protector. You thank Him not just for the blessings, but for the correction. Not just for the yes, but for the no. You start to understand that every no is part of a bigger yes. That every delay is protection. That every closed door is a redirection toward something better. That kind of insight only comes through a grateful heart. It opens your spiritual eyes. It gives you wisdom beyond your years. It matures your faith in ways nothing else can. Gratitude turns your entire life into a prayer. Every step you take becomes worship. Every breath you breathe becomes praise. You start to live with reverence, with awe, with awareness. Nothing is taken for granted. Not time, not people, not moments. You live wide awake to the beauty of now, and that changes everything. Because most people sleepwalk through life, always waiting for the next big thing to feel fulfilled. But gratitude wakes you up. It teaches you that the big things are hidden in the little things, that what you already have is enough for joy. That contentment isn't complacency, it's power. It's the quiet power of being okay before everything is okay. And that's where miracles begin. Not when everything is perfect, but when your heart is. When you stop striving and start appreciating. When you stop demanding and start thanking. That shift in your spirit prepares you for overflow. It makes you trustworthy with blessings. Because God doesn't just want to bless you, He wants the blessing to bless others through you. And that only happens when you're anchored in gratitude. When your heart is rooted in appreciation. Nothing can uproot your peace. Nothing can steal your joy, because you know that every day is a gift, every breath is a chance, every moment is an opportunity to say thank you again. Even your struggles become sacred. You look back and realize that some of your greatest growth came from your greatest pain. And you say thank you not for the suffering itself, but for the strength it produced. You thank God for not answering certain prayers because He had something better. You thank Him for not letting certain people stay because He knew they couldn't go where you were headed. You thank Him for every detour, every delay, every disappointment, because all of it led you here, to this deeper place, to this richer life, to this unshakable gratitude that nothing and no one can take away. Gratitude is not just an emotion, it's a spiritual strategy. It is how you protect your peace, how you guard your heart, how you stay grounded when everything around you feels shaky. It's how you rise without ego and fall without despair. It's how you find joy in the middle of confusion. And that joy becomes your strength. That joy becomes your testimony. That joy becomes the very thing that draws others to the light you carry. Not because your life is perfect, but because your perspective is powerful. And that power isn't flashy, it's quiet. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to be loud to be life-changing. It shows up in your smile, in your patience, in your ability to stay calm. It shows up in how you respond to stress, in how you handle what others can't. It shows up in your peace. And that peace is contagious. It changes rooms, it changes lives, it changes you. You don't need more to be grateful. You need to see more clearly. And once you do, once your heart begins to overflow with thanksgiving, you'll realize that gratitude isn't something you do, it's something you become. It becomes your language, your posture, your presence. It becomes your power. And that power, rooted in faith and anchored in God, becomes the quiet force that changes everything around you without needing to force anything at all. There are moments in life that defy logic, times when everything you carefully built comes crashing down. Days when your strength is not enough, your knowledge falls short, and your plans turn into dust. In those moments, you are forced to confront the invisible rules that govern your journey, rules you never wrote, but ones that shape your every move. And among those silent, hidden rules is the most powerful of them all, the unspoken pull of divine timing. Faith in God is not just about believing when things make sense. It's about trusting even when they don't. It's about surrendering to a timeline far greater than yours. It's about leaning into patience when the world screams for urgency. And yet, how often do we fight against that invisible flow? How many times do we resist the very pause that was placed to protect us? We often pray for things, then grow frustrated when they don't arrive on our schedule. But the truth is, delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. Waiting is not wasting. God doesn't operate on our clocks. He doesn't check your calendar before He unfolds His plan. When the hidden rule of divine timing is at work, the greatest test is not about waiting, it's about how you wait. Most people miss their breakthroughs not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they gave up too soon. They misread silence as abandonment. They mistook detours for dead ends. But in God's world, every delay carries a purpose. Every closed door redirects you to one that's better. You may not see it, but behind every postponement is divine precision at work. This rule doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with flashing lights or clear instructions. Instead, it whispers in the quiet spaces. Trust me, it challenges your pride, confronts your control, and demands your surrender. And that's why so many people struggle, because waiting exposes you. It strips you of illusions and forces you to sit with your own fears. It shows you what you truly believe. And in that space between what you want and what you're given, your character is forged. The rule of divine timing isn't a punishment, it's a preparation. What if the thing you're waiting for is waiting for you to grow? What if your dream is ready, but you aren't? God sees what you cannot. He knows what lies around the corner. He knows that if He gave you what you asked for right now, it might destroy you instead of bless you. So He waits, and in that wait, He works on you. He shapes your patience, stretches your endurance, and builds your faith. Because faith is not proven in the moments when everything goes right, it's proven when nothing does. And you still hold on. Faith is not about being blind. It's about seeing more. Seeing that beyond this delay is a design. Beyond this pause is a plan. Beyond this frustration is a future. When you live by this hidden rule, your life begins to change. You no longer measure your success by speed. You stop comparing your timeline to others. You stop racing people who are not even on the same path as you. You stop resenting your journey. Instead, you learn to honor the process. You embrace the pace. You find peace in not knowing everything, because you've tasted enough of God's faithfulness to know that He never fails. The problem is, we've been conditioned to expect instant results. We live in a world of two-day deliveries and one-click gratification. And somewhere along the way, we brought that impatience into our faith. But God is not Amazon. He's not a vending machine. He's not obligated to meet your deadlines. His timing is not a delay, it's a design. Every second is a setup. Every minute is meaningful. Even the moments that feel wasted are woven into the masterpiece, the rule of divine. Timing also teaches you humility. It shows you that you are not in control, no matter how much you pretend to be. It reminds you that the universe doesn't revolve around your desires. It places you in your rightful position not as the author of your story, but as a character. Trusting the author, and in that humility, something beautiful happens. You stop striving. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop begging God to rush what was never meant to be rushed. Instead, you start preparing. You prepare for the blessing even when you can't see it. You build your foundation even when the rain hasn't come. Like Noah building the ark before there was a drop of water. Like Abraham walking up the mountain with no idea where the ram would come from. Like Joseph holding onto a dream while sitting in prison. Divine timing is not just a test, it's a training ground. It teaches you how to trust in what's invisible, how to rely on a strength that is not your own, how to believe in a plan that hasn't revealed itself yet. And if you can endure that tension, if you can sit in that space of not knowing, you'll come out stronger, wiser, and more ready than you ever imagined. This hidden rule is often misunderstood. People think that if it takes time, it must be wrong. That if it's hard, it must not be meant for them. But that's not how God works. Sometimes the hardest path is the holiest one. Sometimes the longest journey leads to the greatest reward. And sometimes the thing you've been praying for is already on its way, it's just not your turn yet. The danger is in moving too soon, in forcing what was meant to flow, in grabbing what you were meant to grow into. That's when things fall apart. That's when blessings become burdens. That's when we step outside the covering of divine order and end up lost in the wilderness of our own impatience. But when you honor divine timing, you gain more than just a result, you gain alignment. And alignment is powerful. When you're aligned with God's timing, doors open without you knocking. Opportunities find you. Battles are won before you even arrive. Because you're not walking alone, you're walking in rhythm with the creator of time itself. That's the hidden power most people never see. They're so busy trying to rush the process that they miss the peace available within it. They overlook the fact that God's no today might be a yes tomorrow. That His silence is often the loudest form of communication. That His delays are drenched in mercy. Imagine how different your life would be if you trusted that everything is unfolding exactly as it should, not passively, but actively. Not as an excuse to be lazy, but as a reason to be deeply present, to show up every day. Do your part and leave the results in God's hands. That's real faith, not just praying, but preparing, not just hoping, but healing, not just dreaming, but developing. So the next time you feel like life is passing you by, remember the hidden rule. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared for what you've been praying for. And when the time is right, not according to your watch, but His, it will all make sense. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to break yourself to earn it. It will come, and when it does, it will fit so perfectly that you'll wonder why you ever doubted in the first place. Because that's how divine timing works. Quietly, slowly, precisely. It builds you while you're waiting so you can handle what's coming when it arrives. It stretches your faith so that you stop looking at life as a race and start seeing it as a revelation of who you really are, a revelation of who God is. A revelation that the delays didn't destroy you, they developed you. And once you internalize that truth, you'll never be the same again. There's a hidden mechanism within us, a subtle force that guides us, redirects us, and sometimes holds us back, not because it wants to punish us, but because it wants to protect us from what we cannot see. that force is the invisible influence of our beliefs, shaped deeply by the faith we carry or fail to carry. Faith in God is not merely an act of religion. It is a hidden rule that dictates how we perceive life's chaos, how we interpret failure, and how we define success. The moment faith is absent, fear rushes in to fill the void. The unseen rules begin to favor doubt over destiny, hesitation over hope. But when faith is strong and alive, these same hidden forces work in our favor, silently rearranging circumstances, shifting hearts, and opening doors we never even knew existed. It is this dimension of inner influence that few acknowledge but all live under. We often think we are making choices based on logic, but logic itself bends to belief, and belief bends to the strength of our connection with the divine. Every thought we allow into our mind becomes a seed, and every seed we water with our focus and faith either grows into something beautiful or something burdensome. Most people are not living their lives, they are living their programming, and their programming is silently run by the beliefs they inherited, absorbed, or assumed were true. Faith, then, is not just a spiritual tool, it is a rewiring code. It overrides negative loops and reinstalls divine confidence in places where doubt once thrived. Have you ever wondered why some people, despite having less, achieve more? Why some walk through storms with peace while others collapse under clouds? It's not their resources, it's their source. It's what they silently believe about who's guiding them. Faith in God is like an internal compass that always points north even when the map is missing. It's not loud, it doesn't shout, but it steadies your hands when they shake and calms your breath when the world feels like it's closing in. The hidden rule is that the deeper your trust, the less you need to know the how. Because when you are aligned with divine direction, even detours serve a higher purpose. We often pray for clarity, for straight paths, for light to shine on the road ahead. But faith whispers, walk anyway, even when it's dark, even when you don't understand. And somehow, as if by a code embedded in the fabric of reality, the way becomes clearer the moment your foot touches the ground. Life doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to decision. The decision to believe, to trust, to act as if the unseen will catch you. That is the rule that turns chaos into coordination. People tend to wait for the outside world to confirm what they believe on the inside. But that's not how the hidden rules work. You don't receive because you need. You receive because you believe. It is not a transaction. It is a transformation. What you believe about God shapes what you expect from life. If you believe He's distant, life feels like a battlefield. If you believe He's near, life becomes a journey of meaning. The rule is not written in books or posted on walls, it is etched into your soul, felt in your quiet moments, tested in your trials, and proven in your persistence. You don't always get what you pray for, but you always grow into the person who can handle what's next when you keep praying. This is how the invisible code works when you have faith in God. The delays don't destroy you, they develop you. The rejection doesn't break you, it builds you. Because the outcome is never just about the result, it's about who you become in the process. Many people suffer not because they lack faith in God, but because they place faith in everything else. Faith in money, faith in people, faith in titles, and when those things fail, which they inevitably do, they feel abandoned. But faith in God is not circumstantial. It doesn't depend on the weather of your life. It's rooted in something far beyond the senses. It's the certainty that even when nothing makes sense, something divine is still at work. This is one of the most powerful hidden rules. What you put your faith in becomes your God. If your faith is in temporary things, your peace will be temporary. But if your faith is in the eternal, your peace becomes permanent. And this peace is not just emotional comfort, it is clarity in confusion, strength in weakness, and confidence in moments when everything around you screams otherwise. Another hidden rule that runs your life is the law of reflection. What you carry inside, you will eventually encounter outside. If you carry fear, you'll see threats everywhere. If you carry faith, you'll see opportunities even in adversity. God doesn't just work through blessings, He works through burdens. The weight you carry is sometimes a divine tool to make your legs stronger for the climb ahead. But we often try to throw off the struggle without realizing it's shaping our strength. When you walk in faith, you start to understand that unanswered prayers are often answered protection, that closed doors are divine redirection, and that what breaks your heart is often making room for something far more sacred. Faith allows you to see what the eye can't. It gives you spiritual sight, which is far more valuable than physical vision. The greatest trick of the enemy is not to make you fall, it's to make you forget who's holding you. Once you forget God is with you, every minor storm feels like the end. But faith anchors you in truth. It reminds you that even in the dark, you're not alone. That even in silence, He is still speaking. That even in waiting, He is still working. There's a hidden rhythm to life, a divine orchestration behind the scenes. And faith in God is the only instrument that lets you hear the music before the song begins. When you walk by sight alone, life feels disconnected and random. But when you walk by faith, even the pain starts to make sense. Even the loss carries purpose. You begin to see divine fingerprints in your detours and miracles in your mundane. The real war is not outside, it's inside. Between fear and faith, between doubt and trust, the hidden rule is simple. What you feed grows. Feed your fear, and you'll shrink. Feed your faith, and you'll soar. You don't need all the answers to move forward. You just need to trust the one who does. The strength of your faith will be tested, not because God wants to break you, but because He wants to reveal you to yourself. We often underestimate our capacity to overcome because we only measure our ability, not God's. But when your faith is in Him, you tap into a power that is not your own. And that is the shift that unlocks the extraordinary in the ordinary. Most people wait for a sign, but don't realize they already are one. The fact that you're still here, still breathing, still searching, still standing, that's a sign. God hasn't left you. He's guiding you through hidden rules you may not even understand yet. The divine doesn't always explain. Sometimes He just invites. Faith is your RSVP. Will you accept what you don't fully understand? Will you walk, even when the path is unclear? The answer to those questions reveals more about your future than any external sign ever could. Because destiny is not found, it's followed. And it's followed by faith. When you trust God, you're not gambling, you're guaranteeing a greater good will emerge, even from your greatest grief. To live by faith is to live with spiritual eyes wide open. It's to see past circumstances and into possibilities. It's to look at the mountain and see not the size of the obstacle, but the size of your God. Faith does not erase fear, it overrides it. It doesn't eliminate pain, it transforms it. And in doing so, it unlocks the hidden rules that have always been running your life in the background. Now, with conscious awareness, you begin to see patterns where you used to see problems. You start recognizing divine design where you once saw disappointment. Life becomes a dialogue with God, not just a battle against odds. Faith doesn't make everything easy, it makes everything meaningful. And when life is meaningful, you don't just survive, you thrive. Faith is not passive, it's the most active force in the universe. It moves mountains, changes hearts, shifts realities, and aligns lives with divine destiny. It is the invisible code, the sacred current, the unseen law that governs what's possible when you align your heart with heaven's plan and walk boldly, even blindly, in the light of what you know, deep down, to be true. There are moments when everything external appears to be in order, yet the soul still stirs restlessly, as though something is missing. This quiet yearning is often not for more success, more possessions, or even more validation. It is the soul's silent whisper for alignment with its Creator. We try to calm it with distraction, entertainment, or achievement, but the restlessness remains because the void it speaks of is spiritual. The hidden rule at work here is profound. No matter what we accumulate in the physical world, our soul will always hunger for divine connection. That yearning is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. It is a compass pointing toward the origin of all peace. When we ignore this compass, we feel lost even when we're surrounded by everything we thought we wanted. But when we follow it, when we start to walk in the direction of faith, something remarkable begins to happen. The noise of life starts to quiet, not because the world changes, but because our hearts begin to find clarity. This clarity doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't demand attention, it invites stillness. It doesn't ask for performance, it asks for presence. This shift in perception is the essence of spiritual awakening. And it doesn't need a temple or a mountain or a book to begin, it just needs you. Right where you are, as you are, in the mess, the questions, the uncertainty. God doesn't wait for you to be perfect. He waits for you to be honest. In fact, the rule hidden deep within your struggles is this: your pain is often the birthplace of your prayers. Your breakdown is often the ground where your breakthrough is planted. Many try to wait until they have it all together before turning to God. But that's like waiting to be healed before seeing the doctor. What God responds to is sincerity, not polish. The hidden rule is that vulnerability with God is strength, not weakness. We've been trained to present the best version of ourselves to the world on social media, in conversations, even in our careers, but God sees through every filter. You don't need to impress Him, you just need to return to Him. And when you do, you start to feel what real peace tastes like, not the peace that comes from a good day or a full bank account, but the peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. That kind of peace is not temporary. It is eternal, and it grows from roots planted in faith. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. The stronger your faith, the less life can shake you. Faith is not always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet refusal to give up. It's waking up another day and deciding to keep walking even when you can't see the path. It's choosing to believe in purpose even when you feel purposeless. And it's trusting that the silence of God is not the absence of God. The hidden rule here is that your faith is most powerful when it seems like nothing is happening, because that's where real growth takes place, in the invisible, underground chambers of the soul. It's in those seasons where you're tempted to give up that God is often building the very foundation you'll stand on later. Don't despise the silence. Don't underestimate what's happening behind the curtain. God works in stillness because stillness creates depth. A shallow tree can't survive a storm, but one with roots deep into the earth can withstand hurricane winds. In the same way, your soul, anchored in faith, can endure what your mind thinks is impossible. Another hidden rule is this: your life becomes what you focus on. If you feed fear, it will grow. If you water faith, it will blossom. You cannot plant seeds of worry and expect a harvest of peace. Whatever you meditate on becomes your reality. That's why God urges us to remember Him, not occasionally, but constantly. Not because He needs our attention, but because we need His presence. The more you remember God, the more you remember who you are. Fear shrinks your identity. Faith expands it. The world will try to reduce you to your mistakes, your past, or your failures, but God sees you through the lens of possibility. He sees the blueprint, the one you forgot. When you align with that vision, everything changes, not necessarily outside, but inside. And when the inside changes, the outside eventually follows. Your words begin to carry power. Your presence begins to feel lighter. Your choices start to reflect your trust in something greater. That's not just personal development, that's spiritual transformation. We live in a world obsessed with results, with speed, with control. But one of the most powerful hidden rules that faith teaches is surrender. Not the kind that says I give up, but the kind that says I don't need to control everything to trust the outcome. That's revolutionary, because in surrender, there is strength. When you surrender to God, you're not giving away power, you're tapping into a power far greater than your own. You're saying, I trust that there is a plan, even if I can't see it. And ironically, that's when things start to align. Doors open, opportunities arrive, not because you forced them, but because you stopped blocking them with fear. When you let go of control, you make space for miracles. You clear the clutter of anxiety so that clarity can enter. You stop striving and you start receiving. But surrender is not a what-I'm act. It's a daily decision, a moment-by-moment practice, and it begins by releasing the need to understand everything. Because faith doesn't always make sense, it just makes transformation possible. There's another truth hidden in plain sight. Your environment influences your faith. Who you listen to, what you watch, what you allow into your mind, these things shape your beliefs. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, with doubt, with fear, it becomes hard to hear the whispers of God. But when you intentionally expose yourself to truth, to hope, to people who lift your spirit, you begin to remember what you forgot: you are not alone. You are guided. You are supported. You are loved. Even when you feel unworthy, faith grows in the soil of encouragement. And sometimes, that encouragement must come from you. You must learn to speak life to yourself. You must become the voice that says, God is still with me, even when no one else says it. That inner voice becomes your anchor when the storms hit. And the storms will come, but you were never meant to face them alone. You were never meant to walk this life on your own strength. Even your past, which you may have tried to bury or forget, holds hidden wisdom when filtered through faith. The rule is, God wastes nothing. Not your failures, not your pain, not your regrets. Everything can be redeemed. What you thought was a dead end might become the beginning of something beautiful. What you thought disqualified you may be what equips you to help others. Your scars are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you survived, and survival is evidence of grace. So stop disqualifying yourself. Stop believing the lie that you are too far gone, too broken, or too lost. God specializes in restoration. He doesn't just fix things. He makes them new. But for that to happen, you must believe you're worthy of a new chapter. You must let go of shame and replace it with truth. Shame says, I'm not enough. Truth says, I was made in the image of God. Shame says, I'll never change. Truth says, with God, all things are possible. The voice you listen to will shape the story you live. Every decision you make, every response you give, every thought you entertain, these are guided by invisible rules. And faith brings them to light. You start to see that nothing is random, that your delays have a purpose, that your pain carries hidden gifts, that your prayers are heard, even when they're silent. And the more you live from this place, the less you are shaken by what happens around you, because your roots are deeper, your vision is clearer, your peace is not negotiable. That's the hidden power of faith. It gives you eyes that see beyond what is visible, and a heart that trusts what is eternal. The deeper you go into life, the more you begin to realize that what's visible often hides what truly drives everything. Beneath the surface of your actions, emotions, and thoughts are silent codes written by your beliefs, especially your belief in God. These hidden codes shape the way you react to pressure, how you respond to loss, and the way you deal with uncertainty. Many people think faith is about moments of worship or grand declarations, but the truth is, faith is a silent architect. It builds your reactions, your hopes, and your endurance, even when you don't know it. Every person, whether they admit it or not, is being shaped by an invisible force within. That force is either rooted in fear or grounded in faith. And when your foundation is faith in God, you become unshakable even when the world around you is crumbling. Most people never examine the hidden rules that control their life. They live on autopilot, moving from one task to another, reacting instead of choosing. They don't question the voices in their heads, the panic in their hearts, or the numbness in their souls. But if they stopped long enough to ask, what's really driving me right now, they'd often find fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being unloved, fear of not having enough, fear of being unseen. And in that moment, they would realize they've been trusting everything except God. But once you shift from fear to faith, you stop surviving and start living. You stop chasing people and start following purpose. You stop begging for peace and start walking in it. One of the hidden rules that dominates people's lives is the need for control. The more uncertain life feels, the more people try to control outcomes, others, or even themselves. But control is an illusion. It's a disguise for fear. You can't control the future. You can't control people's choices. And you can't control how everything unfolds. What you can do is surrender. Not surrender in weakness, but surrender in strength. When you trust God, you don't need to manipulate reality. You're not desperate to force outcomes, because you know that what's meant for you won't pass you, and what's not meant for you won't stay no matter how hard you try. Faith rewrites the rule of control with the power of surrender, and that surrender becomes your gateway to peace. Another hidden rule is self-worth. So many people unconsciously believe they are not enough. This belief, often planted in childhood and reinforced by society, runs like a background program in the mind. It whispers, you're not smart enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not worthy of love. And as long as that rule runs unchallenged, people live small, scared, and in constant comparison. But when you believe in God and realize that He doesn't make mistakes, you begin to see that your worth was never in question. God doesn't create anything average. You are not a glitch. You are not an accident. You were formed with intention, wrapped in purpose, and infused with divine potential. Your flaws don't diminish your worth. They are part of your unique design. Faith in God dismantles the rule of unworthiness and replaces it with the truth of divine identity. People often live under the rule of results. Their peace rises and falls with outcomes. If things go well, they're happy. If things go wrong, they fall apart. This creates a life of emotional instability, chained to circumstances. But when you live by faith, your stability comes from something higher. Faith doesn't deny pain or ignore disappointment. It simply anchors you in a power that is not shaken by change. Faith allows you to be calm in chaos, still in storms, and strong in sorrow. It gives you the ability to say, even if I don't understand what's happening, I trust the one who does. That kind of trust becomes your superpower. You stop needing everything to go your way because you know God is still working in every way. Rejection is another rule that quietly dominates people's lives. The fear of being rejected leads to people-pleasing, perfectionism, and self-abandonment. We start shaping our personality based on what we think others want, not who we really are. But when you trust God, you stop needing everyone's approval. You start living authentically, knowing that the one who created you already accepts you. Rejection no longer defines you, it refines you. It becomes protection. It becomes redirection. Faith teaches you that you don't need to chase belonging when you already belong to God. You can walk away from what's toxic. You can say no without guilt. And you can let go of people without losing yourself. There's also a rule of urgency that makes people feel like they're running out of time. They rush through life, chasing deadlines and milestones, constantly anxious that they're falling behind. But divine timing is not the same as human timing. Faith slows you down to the speed of trust. It teaches you that delay is not denial, and that sometimes God pauses things not to punish you, but to prepare you. When you live by faith, you understand that your journey is uniquely timed. You're not late. You're not behind. You're right where you need to be for what God is forming in you. You stop comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. You breathe deeper. You move wiser. You grow stronger. Faith helps you release the anxiety of when and rest in the peace of who. Many people also follow the hidden rule of scarcity. This rule makes them believe that there's never enough love, never enough money, never enough success. It turns life into a competition and makes gratitude impossible. But when you trust God, you know that He is not limited. His blessings are not scarce. His mercy doesn't run out. His provision is not based on the economy. He doesn't operate in lack. Faith teaches you to live with open hands, not clenched fists. You begin to see life as abundant, and your energy shifts from grasping to giving. You stop being threatened by other people's wins because you know their success doesn't cancel yours. You start celebrating instead of comparing. You become a magnet for miracles because your heart is aligned with abundance. The rule of shame is another silent controller. People carry their past like chains, thinking their mistakes have defined them. They let guilt and regret write their narrative. But faith sets you free. God doesn't shame, He redeems. He doesn't discard the broken, He restores them. When you trust God, you stop letting your past decide your future. You don't ignore your scars, you embrace them as proof of survival. Faith transforms shame into testimony. It tells you that you are not what happened to you. You are who God says you are. And every failure, every fall, becomes a chapter in the story of redemption. You walk with your head high not because you're perfect, but because you're forgiven. Then there's the rule of logic. Many people only trust what they can see, touch, or explain. They live by reason, not revelation. But faith invites you to go beyond logic. It whispers, even if it doesn't make sense, trust anyway. God often moves in ways that defy understanding. He parts seas. He shuts lions' mouths. He raises the dead. And if you try to fit God into your understanding, you'll miss His miracles. Faith doesn't eliminate thought, it just places it under divine wisdom. You can plan, think, and reason, but you also listen, surrender, and obey. You believe even when it's not logical, because you know God sees what you can't. And that belief becomes the birthplace of breakthroughs. Faith also breaks the rule of isolation. So many people believe they have to go through life alone, carry their pain alone, fight their battles alone. But faith reminds you that you are never alone. God is with you in the silence, in the struggle, in the shadows. He walks beside you, even when no one else sees. And once you truly believe that, loneliness loses its power. You no longer feel invisible, because you know you are intimately seen. You no longer feel abandoned, because you know you are eternally loved. Faith becomes your constant companion, the silent whisper in your soul that says, I am with you, always, ultimately. The hidden rules that run your life are either built on fear or grounded in faith. Every moment is a choice to reinforce one or replace it with the other. You don't need to fight every fear or untangle every anxiety. You just need to plant faith deeply enough that it overrules everything else. Faith doesn't mean life will be easy. It means you'll never face it alone. It doesn't mean you'll have all the answers. It means you trust the one who does. When you build your life on faith in God, you begin to rewrite the very code that governs your existence. You start to see differently, think differently, live differently. You are no longer a prisoner of hidden fears. You become a vessel of divine power, navigating life not by default, but by design. Every rule that once held you back is replaced by a truth that sets you free, and that freedom becomes the beginning of everything you've been searching for. When you finally understand the hidden rules that have quietly shaped every decision, every moment of doubt, every fear, and every hope, you begin to awaken, not with loud epiphanies or fireworks, but with a silent shift that moves through your soul like a quiet breeze, rearranging everything inside you. You see it now. Life was never just about random chance or chaos. There was always something more pulling the strings, something divine and deliberate. Something deeper than just survival or success. It was God, and more specifically, it was your faith in God that was writing the true script of your life all along. That faith was the current underneath your choices, the whisper behind your courage, and the silence beneath your storms. While the world taught you to chase, compete, and control, faith invited you to let go, trust, and receive. You used to think control meant power, but now you know surrender is the ultimate strength. Faith is not weakness, it's not blindness. It's the highest clarity a human soul can carry, because it sees what the eyes cannot. It sees a divine order in apparent chaos. It sees protection in rejection. It sees guidance in delays. It sees destiny in detours. And it sees God's hand even when life feels like it's slipping through your fingers. You have lived under the illusion that you were the main architect of your life. But every time things went off script, every time you felt like you were being broken down, you were actually being rebuilt closer to His design, not yours. The greatest mistake you could ever make is to think that your struggles mean you're doing something wrong. No. Sometimes your struggle means you're finally doing something right. Sometimes it means you're stepping into the spiritual dimension, where logic stops and faith begins. The hidden rules that run your life don't live in textbooks, social norms, or business strategies. They live in your relationship with the unseen. They live in that quiet place inside you where you and God speak in a language no one else hears. Every breakthrough in your life was born not from force, but from surrender, not from noise, but from silence, not from proving yourself to the world, but from bowing your head when no one was watching. It was in those moments of unseen humility that heaven shifted things in your favor. The hidden rule is this: when you trust God fully, everything else loses its power over you. You stop fearing what people say. You stop shrinking to fit into their expectations, and you stop panicking over temporary storms. You become anchored in something eternal. And in that anchoring, you discover a different kind of freedom, not the kind the world shouts about, but the kind that gives your soul space to breathe, to rest, to just be. That is the freedom that comes from faith. You no longer chase moments, you create them with the presence of your trust. You no longer beg for peace, you walk in it. Even when the world is on fire, you no longer search for your worth, you know it was written in the divine, long before anyone else tried to define you. The hidden rules are not hidden to punish you. They are hidden to be discovered by those who seek truth beyond the surface. And the greatest truth you will ever discover is that your life is not just a sum of your actions. It is a living testament to the power of your belief. Faith isn't what you turn to after everything else fails. It's what you should lead with. It's what should sit at the center of every plan, every dream, every heartbreak, and every triumph. Faith in God isn't the backup plan. It's the only real plan. Everything else is noise. Look back now. Trace the steps. Rewind the scenes. You'll find a pattern you didn't notice before. That thing you thought was a failure, it was redirection. That thing you begged to stay, but it left, it was protection. That breakdown that shattered you, it was your soul breaking free from its illusion. The hidden rules have always been this simple when you put God first. Everything else finds its place. Not always in your timing, not always in the way you imagined, but always, always better than what you thought you needed. Trust is the ultimate compass, not strategy. Surrender is the most powerful weapon, not resistance. Love, not fear, is the currency of divine alignment. And silence is not emptiness, it is often the sound of God rearranging your life. You will never fully understand how deeply God has been involved in your life until you get far enough away from your past to see the masterpiece in the mess. So stop doubting your journey. Stop cursing your pain. Stop questioning your pace. Start remembering who is writing your story. The final and most sacred hidden rule is this: your life becomes unstoppable the moment you truly believe that God is guiding it. That belief doesn't just change your actions, it changes your atmosphere. It changes the way people treat you. It changes the kind of opportunities that find you. It changes your vibration, your energy, your focus. Faith in God is not just a spiritual practice, it is the architecture of everything that lasts. The invisible becomes visible. The impossible becomes normal. The broken becomes beautiful. And you become who you were always meant to be, not by pushing harder, but by trusting deeper. Not by knowing every step, but by walking anyway. Not by hearing applause, but by hearing the still voice of God say, "Keep going." This is the mystery, the miracle, and the map. These are the hidden rules that run your life. And the moment you decide to walk by faith and not by sight is the moment you finally stop running in circles and start running toward destiny. The story of your life is not over. In fact, it's just beginning. Because now you know the code. Now you live by the truth. And now you understand that when God runs your life, nothing can run you down.